Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Steven Marcelino, Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. And with me today, I have Eric Josefson. Eric, thank you for joining us.
What's up, brother?
Eric is a very interesting man. He's involved in the insurance world. He has his own podcast. He has his own cigar brand. And he touches a lot of different industries. So I'm very happy to have you on the podcast today and give our listeners a special episode.
You got it, man. I'm glad to be here. You forgot to tell people that I met you years ago and you shied me away and I tried cold calling you.
Yeah, Eric did the way Eric and I met. Pretty funny. He was working with a fire alarm company at the time, and he walked into the office at Lapolis, and I remember him because he had a nice beige pea coat on. That's how I remembered him. He was trying to cold call us for fire alarm services. I was like, listen, man, we're good. I'll take all your information, but we work with a lot of fire alarm companies here in New York, but I appreciate your time. And ever since then, one thing I could really say about him, he's a very resilient, guy, and he was always reaching out, always very, kind and outgoing, and it wound up forming a friendship, which is pretty funny. So that kind of goes to show you, never back down, and always keep trying to go after those opportunities.
That's it, man. That's it. You got to, at least showing up and dressing the part is half the battle, because if I wore like a gray pea coat or even just like a furry jacket, you'd probably like, get this guy out of here. But because I had that pea coat on, that tan one, we're here today.
That's it. I actually went and got one myself.
Did you?
I got a beige pea coat because of that.
That was my favorite jacket, and then it got roughed up one night, and I had to get rid of it. But yeah, that jacket got a lot of mileage on it. But I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. No, listen, I know you do a lot of different things, and you as well are a fellow podcaster, mm-hmm. So it's always nice to have, people like yourselves on the show to talk to us a little bit. So, I have an interesting topic that I want to put out there because of all the different areas of industry that you do touch, in terms of relatability and how relatability helps you not only get into doors with prospective clients, but also helps you maintain relationships with current clients you may be doing business with, both on the insurance side and also, having the cigar brand, how you kind of bring all that together and culminate, the two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back for a while ago when I first started, was in sales. That's all I really knew. All my family is engineers. I wasn't good in math or science, and I was a kid who went to summer school, wasn't good in math. My dad was like, hey, everyone always needs a sales guy. And, you should go to school for business. So I was like, all right. So my uncle, years ago, I did an internship with him. He owns a company down in Florida. So I did an internship with him. And he told me, people don't care about what you know or what you're selling until they know you care about them. So I always took those words as, I could have the best product in the world. I can have the best this, the best that. But until people know I actually give a shit about what they're doing or their life or whatever, then I'm never going to get anywhere. So being relatable in any industry is always extremely important. And you also kind of being a chameleon, in a way. So I learned early on, my first job out of college was door-to-door sales, selling Verizon Fios.
That's tough.
I always thought knocking on the door, big smile, personality. I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, boom, shutting the door on my face, cursing me out, calling the police.
I was going to ask, has anyone ever called the cops on you?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's how you know you're doing your job.
Yeah, I was out there. I was out there all day, rain, sleet, hail, or snow. I wore a Verizon jacket so people could recognize me, but no, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. But I learned that you can't always be the happy-go-lucky guy if everyone's not feeling that way. So I learned, try to pick up, what do they have on their lawns? How is a person approaching me? If the person is like super, let's talk to this guy, I'm gonna be the same way. If I'm looking at you, you're kind of a little more stern right now, I'm probably gonna lower my voice, kind of just be a little more direct and just kind of get to the point. But I just took all these little nitpicks as I was younger and kind of just developing how to be more relatable year after year, because you can have the most product knowledge, you can be the best in your industry, but if you're not relatable and people don't like you, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's, I think, the most important part. So a part of my business, I'm a commercial insurance broker. I do a lot of insurance for contractors, as well as you said, I've been doing a podcast for the last 5 years called the Burn Down Podcast, along with my cigar business that I have. So I always try to find some kind of relatability with cigars and contractors. When I go into a contractor's office and they have a humidor already, I'm like, this is like the easiest thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But regardless, podcasts are newer now, so not everybody understands what a podcast is, but I always try to find, whether it's something on your shirt, you're wearing a lapel on your pin, type of shoes, your watch, always just trying to, I never want to talk about like the weather or like,
No.
the typical stuff, because everyone does that.
Everyone does it. And
Yeah.
that's a great point, and relatability, I think, is one of the strongest assets, not just sales, just any person can have
Yeah.
when they're dealing with people in a business, atmosphere, because there's nothing worse than walking into a room and, a rep or a businessman just breaks out his briefcase and puts a contract on the table and doesn't talk about anything.
Yeah.
You can't make somebody feel more like a transaction than if you just walk in,
100%.
shake hands, hey, how you doing? And, all right, let's talk about this contract. It's like a horrible way, in my opinion, to do business, and going back specifically to the pin on the lapel, I was walking into a building, and listen, this guy could not have been more closed off to entertaining a new electrical contractor. He did not want to see me. He did not want to look at me. I was surprised he even brought me into his building to look at the equipment that he needed the service program put together for. Until I looked, I was like figuring out, I was like, can I bring this guy a cup of coffee? Can I bring him a bagel? Does he like pancakes?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what can I do to just make this guy happy, or at least accept me like 10%?
Or at least just stand out and not just seem like every other person's coming into their building.
Exactly. It was none of that. All it took was, hey, I noticed you have a FDNY pin on your shirt. I have some family that are firefighters, police officers. I related to him a little bit about my interaction in public service work that in my family, and instantly changed the dynamic of everything.
Yeah.
Like, to this day, this guy loves me now. And he tells a guy in my office that he has a longer relationship with. He was like, if he didn't ask me about this pin on my shirt, I would have never given him a single opportunity in this building. And it's because his brother was a firefighter. He passed away, and he wears that pin every day to remember his brother and the service that he gave to the city.
That's it.
And he said that nobody, when they walk into the building, nobody has asked him. And I find it crazy because he's dealing with tons of people every day. Nobody's ever asked him about that pin on his shirt. And that's all it took. It wasn't 4 seats to a Knicks game. It wasn't, some expensive dinner, nothing. It wasn't even a cup of coffee, something simple. It was, what does that pin on your shirt mean to you that you're wearing?
Because that's what's his pride and joy. A lot of people like to talk about themselves. So like whenever we're in a meeting or some kind of discussion, I always try to get them talking about whatever they want to talk about, because I can say, I have the best product, and my product is this, and we have the best service. And they're like, all right, I heard this like freaking spiel a million times.
Yeah.
But I want to know about you. And that's one reason why I like sales. That's one reason why I do the podcast, as well as with cigars, because it all has a human element to it. With sales, it's all about getting to know that person. It's a relationship business. I love learning about people, how they started a business, what their family is, what their hobbies are. With the podcast, we interview people every single Friday, and it's all about bringing people together over a cigar. And I love learning their story and where they got to today and who they are. And with cigars, I'm sure, as you smoke cigars. It doesn't matter. You can have a million different differences. You can have nothing in common. You can be black, white, you can be blue collar, white collar, you can be a professional, you can be a janitor. Doesn't matter what it is, but we're here for one reason, that's a cigar. So they all intertwine together, and that's why I just think I love the industries that I'm in, because it's all people business.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's great too, because like you said, just having one commonality with somebody like a cigar. You sit down, you start talking, and then you realize, like, oh my God, I have so much in common with this person.
Yeah.
I want to smoke a cigar with them every day. Next thing you know, you're having cigars, you're getting dinner together, you're hanging out by each other's pool, whatever the situation may be, all over one common element.
That's it.
And I think the big thing too is, that you touched on, just always talking about other people. This is a big conversation I have with my reps in my office is, guys, nobody wants a sales rep to walk into their building and talk about themselves.
100%.
Like, I only know that from trial and error. When I first came into sales, I always had the gift of gab, but I didn't really understand the technicality of sales. Like I had to do a lot of research, a lot of learning, and really understand like the psychology behind sales. And when I would go to a prospective client and talk too much, I would notice this person's not calling me back. When I would go to a prospective client and ask a ton of questions and talk about them and learn about them, that person would call me back. So it's, I started doing something where it's like, write down on, I tell my reps, write down on a piece of paper, what are you doing right that you retain that prospect? What are you doing wrong that prospect rejected you? It's almost like a SWOT analysis. I have them write the list out. Okay, these are all the things you did wrong and you realize it. Stop doing them and do this, tactic that you're following to get into the doors and do it with everybody, cookie cutter. Obviously, depending on the personalities, your tone of voice, all these different things need to, be customized to the person you're speaking to, but follow the same formula, and that's huge. And that goes back to like a strategy I like called What's Your Dog's Name? I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's like when you walk into a prospect's building or, a person that you're speaking to for maybe like the first time in person, go and ask them, what's your dog's name? Because 90% of the time when you speak to someone, whether they have a dog, a cat, a goldfish, they have some type of pet. And, when you ask somebody what their dog's name is and you try and relate to their pet that's like their pride and joy, it melts their heart. It's like the cigar. You go in and talk to somebody about something that they love, and now they're just telling you everything. They're telling you how old their kids are, the sports they play. And if they don't have a dog, you could ask them a question. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite sports team? And the name of the exercise is what's your dog's name, because that's the most, common thing people have, most common thing people have that you can relate to. But it's a matter of what is your, and not let me talk about myself, and that's huge.
Yeah, it brings that human element. It kind of forgets of that, why you're actually here. Whether it's electrical services, insurance, whatever it is, it kind of washes that way that business element and kind of adds a human element apart to it. Just because again, it goes back to relatability. Because I've been on sales calls myself where people are trying to sell me, like buying a car or something, and it's just like so bland and it's like black and white, and I'm like, you want to be like, can you give me like, can you talk to me more, like sell me better? Because like this is brutal to go through right now, like kind of cringy. But it's a science. It's a psychological thing. There's a lot of things with personality and the way people think. So it's always learning. I don't think you ever stop learning when you're in sales.
No, I think anybody that says they know everything, they know nothing.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
there's so much to learn out there. There's so much information. If it's not specifically about the technicality of sale, what about the technicality of the product that you're selling? There's always something else that can be learned, on a daily basis. And my big thing is, like, I try and learn 5 new things a day. I'm not saying I'm going to master 5 things a day, but I want to learn more about something every day, whether it's in my industry or, something I'm interested in, because I'm a firm believer that if you don't keep learning, you don't keep reading, listening to podcasts, talking to other individuals, your mind, at a certain age, it's like it turns to cement, and especially as you get older. And once your mind is cemented in your way of thinking, you're not going to accept any, more thought or outside projection on the way life is. You're going to be set in your way, and that's it. And that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people get complacent.
Complacency is terrible. Yeah. So the more you learn, the more you keep challenging your mind to learn new things. It's like, cement before it dries. You're able to mix it. You're able to pour it out, move it around. And that's the way I like to keep my mindset because, like this, a podcast, perfect example. A lot of the older generation, they don't understand the importance of digital marketing because for the past, 25, 30 years, they've been able to operate by putting flyers in the car window or, just cold calling or just knocking on doors. Not saying these things don't still go on, but now there's this extremely powerful tool of social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the tools that guys like, me and you use, coupled with associations, networking events, golf outings, and you culminate everything together, and the end product is overall hopefully success, and getting the name out there, and people aren't willing to, at a certain point in their career or their age, they're not willing to accept the digital marketing era,
100%,
so to speak.
Yeah. No, it's I see it all the time. It's you talk about podcasts with your aunt and uncles, and they're like, "Oh, what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do a podcast." And they're like, "What the hell is a podcast?" And some people accept it, some people don't. There's no knock to them. They just don't want to learn anything new.
Yeah.
But at least people in our generation and below, this is going to be the new way of advertising. It already is, but it's to a certain point. I remember starting an Instagram like 10 years ago. It was just for like pictures and just BSing.
Yeah.
And now it's all video. It's all how much attention you can grab. How much. I think Francis says it. He says, attention is an asset, which I dropped the other day, and someone was like, "Wow, that was a pretty good piece of knowledge." So shout out to Francis. Thanks a lot, buddy. But it's true though. It is an asset, because if you can gather someone's attention for 10, 15, 20 seconds. I've met so many people within this inner circle just through networking and social media, just in the Westchester area.
Yeah.
And it's a big tool.
It is. It's awesome. And I see people, even like the town I live in, people I've like never spoke to before that are coming up to me in like the supermarket. I'm not even joking. This guy owns like 50 buildings in New York City. He's like, ultra wealthy guy. And he came up to me the other day into Chico's. He was like, "Hey, I seen you on a podcast, for your company." And we were just talking because he follows me on Facebook. He was like, "That's really cool." He was like, "It's nice to see the younger generation getting involved with business and actually, caring about, growing a brand and growing their personal image." And he was like, "I just wanted to stop you and commend you for that." And I'm like sitting there like, wow, this guy, his stature in business and just his status, so to speak, just pulling me aside and, in the middle of an aisle in a supermarket. It's like a good feeling.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I'm famous in any way, shape, or form, but it's cool to see that people
get that recognition. That you're doing something, yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, wow, I watched the episode with the owner of your company. I learned so much about you guys," or, whatever it may be. And it's a great feeling.
You never know who's watching. It's you never know who's watching, what pairs of eyes are looking at you, and I used to think like the follower thing was a big measurement. It's all about the eyes, because I see a lot of these accounts that don't necessarily have a lot of followers, but they get thousands of views, and that's a lot of pair of eyes.
Yeah.
And I see within myself, just for I don't have a social media Instagram for my insurance stuff, but for my podcast and my cigars, we're getting thousands and thousands of views, and then it pays off. You get business from it. You get recognized when you're out and about in public, and it's kind of weird when people recognize you. Like, "Hey, you're the cigar guy, or you got the guy with the podcast, or I saw your interview with so and so." Sometimes I'm with my wife and she's like, "Here we go," but it's a cool, validating feeling that people they value what you have to say or what you're doing.
Well, it's important too to get. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, the validation is important. So at least
it's working.
It's working. It's hard work. It's an investment. At least that people are recognizing, what you're doing, and also the brand that is behind.
And my favorite part is when you get, actual business from it.
Yeah.
Booking other events,
leads, whatever it is.
Because we do, with the cigars, we do all the events, as the golf outings, networking, private events, and we do custom labels on the cigars too as well. So when I remember posting a video of us doing custom labels, and that day, guy was like, I was actually looking for a custom labels for my daughter's cigar, for my daughter's wedding. Can you do it in like a week? I'm like, yeah, boom, done. And I was like, if I never posted that would never happened.
They would have never known. Yeah, it's truly awesome. It's a great feeling. I want to ask, a question. So obviously, you're doing a lot in a day, and you have a lot of different, tasks on your plate, so to speak. What are you doing on a daily basis in business to maintain peak performance in, your goals for the day?
I mean, I think a big part of it is, just being, physically active. For the last, my wife's 9 months pregnant, so I haven't been in the gym because we don't really sleep because she's up and down all throughout the night. But it's been the last few months. But previous to that, I was in the gym at 5:30 every single day, and just kind of getting a physical workout, but also it was a mental workout to trying to get that and prepare the day. And when you wake up that early and you start out and you accomplish something, one, you're not tired throughout the day. You already accomplished something, so you're on to the next. And I always just felt like being up early before everyone else. That's why I like being up at 5:30, is because no one else is up there. No one else is up working out. Most people aren't. And I think that's one key attribute. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people. They always have some kind of physical activity early in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I do journal. I do write down goals and stuff like that. I have a book in one of my bags that I write 5 key elements, what makes a good person, the goals for the day, 5 key attributes, what you're thankful for, strengths and weaknesses, and just overall goals. Just a stuff to remind you. I might write it the same thing every single day, but it's just a reminder, not to get off track.
It's very interesting.
And really just kind of just planning, whether I'm making calls all day or if I'm going out on meetings and trying to finding surrounding businesses and going out and dropping off cards, kind of just having your day planned out the day before, whatever I'm doing. If I have a meeting in Queens, if it's a certain zip code, I'll look up certain businesses in that area zip code, and I'll either go there before or after, and I'll just try to prospect around it.
Yeah.
If it's a day of just calling, I'll have like 30, 40 calls lined up, and I just bang out the phones. If it's cigar stuff, it's usually an event. I have to get that prepared for whatever it is. If it's interacting with both my days, where I have to do my 9 to 5, make sure I get all those done, whether it's calls, emails, because you never want to, where it gets, where it can start conflicting with both, is when you're taking like a side business and your main business and you're not doing one of them. So I never want to have my side business affect what I'm doing on my main business, which is the insurance. So I always make sure if I have something later that day, I have to get it all done, whether it's calls, emails, proposals, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Because you want to make sure, I like to go in knowing like I accomplished the first task, so I deserve what I'm doing next, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So those are a couple things.
It sounds like organization is a big part of your repertoire.
I have to. Yeah, I got to be extremely organized, because without any organization or structure, I kind of just wing it. And sometimes, I'm sure winging it isn't always the best, and you kind of just running around like with a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah, I don't think winging it's ever good. I think having a plan, having a process and a procedure to execute whatever the goal for the day is or the goal for the month is extremely important, because if you're winging it, you're not conscious of, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
And if you don't know what's next, then, you can only wing something for so long. If you don't have like when I develop a plan, especially, whether it's for my sales team or whatever I'm working on, when I develop a plan, it's not a plan for the week. I'm developing a plan for like a 2 to 3 year look ahead. And then once year 1 of that 2 to 3 year look ahead is completed, then I add the next year onto it. I'm always planning years in advance for growth, because you can't plan a week in advance. You can't plan a month in advance. These things come so fast.
Yeah.
Like I like to measure things by like the age of my son. Like my son's already 5 years old. Just yesterday, it feels like he was born. So that just goes to show you how fast, he's starting kindergarten next year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's like, when you really look at how fast life really progresses through the, the growth of a business or a child or whatever it may be, you realize how important it is to always stay in front of your own goals.
Yeah, it's always, the time element. I never, growing up, all the grown-ups and your parents and families like, oh, enjoy you being 16, it's going to go fast. And you're always like, yeah, whatever. And I look back and I'm like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like, this fucking time has gone so fucking fast. Man, when a kid now, I want to be 18 still. Like,
I know.
where the fuck did the time go? Can I curse on you? I don't know if I can curse on you. Sorry.
Whatever.
When we go on my podcast, you can curse whatever you want. So I apologize if we can't. But yeah, I always try to, like, I was talking to, I had a meeting in the Bronx, and with the refrigeration company, and the lady I met with, I was relatable with her, quote unquote, as I was talking to her about being very organized and how sometimes it can be too much of a blessing and a lot of a curse sometimes, because sometimes you can be so detail oriented, being organized, that you kind of get consumed in all the daily tasks that you do, and it's like you can't move on without getting one thing done. And but it's important because I try to do everything in one day, 1 hour, whatever it is, but it doesn't always work that way. So you have to prioritize your tasks and looking for the future. If this task is going to take you to the next year, maybe that task is maybe more worth your time as opposed to the little measly task that you can just do tomorrow, if that makes sense. So I'm always trying to prioritize all the different elements and tasks that come through a daily, weekly, monthly basis, because it's good to look forward to things.
Yeah.
And you have to have a plan to look forward to those things.
100%. Something that just came to mind because we're talking and you have a lot on your plate. I have a lot on my plate. We both do, a lot of different things to just give back and also just in our own professional careers. What do you do? Obviously we're human at the end of the day. Like when you feel yourself kind of getting off track and you're like checking Instagram too much, or you might be, veering off and maybe not even just checking Instagram, but just like zoning out. Like, what are you doing to remain focused, on a daily basis? And I'm thinking about this, just the reason this thought comes to mind is because our generation is so locked in on instant gratification. It's in that moment, the distraction might not even be I don't want to be at work right now. The distraction is I'm not getting the result I want in this exact moment, so I'm going to go check my TikTok.
Yeah, it's true.
So what are you doing to kind of maintain those distractions and just staying on task for your goal in that hour?
Yeah. At least one thing with the social media, we all do it. Sometimes you get caught in that that scrolling rut.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
You go on for one thing and you see something else that catches your attention. You're like, oh, that's cool, and you just go and you completely forgot the first thing that you were going for. So I noticed throughout my day, sometimes I'd be wasting 30, 40 minutes just scrolling for no apparent reason. So on your iPhone, there's actually this setting called, I think it's called screen time or something, and you can dictate what day and how much of a time frame. So that was one thing I put on, because I would just get so distracted with, like you said, I would do a task, I'd make a phone call, I'd set a meeting. I was like, all right, cool. I just set a meeting, I just set a phone call. What am I going to do? Let me check Instagram real quick. And then it's boom, you're on Instagram for 30 minutes.
My daily average on screen time is 6 hours a day. That's disgusting.
Oh, where's my phone? My phone's over there. But no, I'm sure it's around there sometimes too as well.
It's crazy. And 6 hours, some people are like, that's not a lot. No, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm on my phone a lot for business. I have my email on here. I have other things on here that I utilize. I'm talking on the phone a lot, emailing and group text with coworkers. But the reliance we have of the technology and the use of the phone, is pretty crazy. And one thing I started doing to really kind of help with my overall mental clarity, on the weekends or after work, what I've really been trying to do, I'm not the best at it. And, if my wife's listening to this right now, she'll tell you guys that I'm full of shit. I'm really trying to take my phone and just leave it on the countertop on the charger and just focus on life. And when I do that, yesterday I had friends over, we were, doing a fire pit, a few other things. And I just let my phone stay inside for 5-6 hours. And I wake up the next day, my mind feels completely different.
There's a real clarity about it. It's really bizarre.
Oh my God, it's insane. And it's almost scary at the same time. It's I equate it to the phone does to your mind what weights do to a weightlifter. If I just sit at my desk all day and curl a 25-pound dumbbell, my arm is going to be shot. And if you're constantly sitting on your phone and taking in mass amounts of information, it's going to wear your mind down.
100%, yeah.
And it's going to create, in my opinion, it's going to create that, lack of focus in the office or with the family, whatever it is. So, I think to a certain degree, detaching from the data and the information for periods of time, for me, and I tell my team the same thing at work, is what is going to assist in being overall focused when you're trying to stay task-oriented.
Yeah, it's the phone is a big key distraction, and everyone falls in the trap. I mean, to answer your question before, you said, what do you do to kind of regain that mental focus? Kind of told you, if I'm already on the phone and I'm scrolling and I'm realizing what I'm doing, I kind of just, I talk to myself. I'll be like, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the
Yeah.
phone. And as soon as you get off, you're like, oh shit, that was like pretty wild. Like I was just,
It's like a handcuff.
20 minutes just went by. Some other things besides kind of just putting on the screen time is that I'll just do something like if I'm in front of my desk or if I'm at home working, I'm just on the phones all day and I kind of just need a break. I'll just get up and I'll just start walking around, or sometimes I'll even call like a family member or a friend just to get some like sidebar conversation to kind of just get that mental clarity back, to kind of just gives you like a recharge. I'll call like my uncle or like my brother or my mom or whatever just to say what's up. It doesn't have to be a long conversation,
That's
but
it, yeah.
just like a reset. And I even do that sometimes, if people who are listening who do like cold calling, no one wants to cold call, but sometimes you have to mentally prepare yourself on what you're doing. So if I'm like, and I've made thousands and thousands of calls throughout my life, I still to this day I'm like, I gotta get on the phone. So what I'll do is I'll call someone I'm familiar with just to kind of get that out the way. Like I said, I'll call a friend, a family member, and I'll just chit chat with them, and it kind of gives you that lubrication, if you will, to make the business cold call that you need to do. But simple tasks like that, nothing really crazy that I'll do.
Nice. So let me ask you, because we're almost wrapping up here, and I know you're a great sales rep, and I want to be able to give our listeners the opportunity to get some advice from you. What are you doing to continuously improve your sales skills, whether it be prospecting, cold calling, lead generation, closing? What function of your game, your sales game, so to speak, are you constantly working on, and what are you doing to work on it to be a better rep, for the next day?
I mean, I take an interest in like the psychological aspect of sales. So I watch or listen to a lot of guys that were like former whatever they were, now they're in sales, but they have a focus in psychology. So I always try to get more of a human element from that. For me, as well as industry, I'm always trying to be up to date with the latest and greatest of what's going on in my industry, so I can sound educated, I guess, if you will, in my industry. But I'm always learning, whether it's like I see a video on LinkedIn about cold calling tips. I'm always just trying to continue in learning. I'll never like push stuff away, because there's always, I might have heard the same thing 30 times, but they might have said one thing. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that, and I'll pick up from that. Like I do read a lot of like entrepreneurial and sales books, and with the sales books, I do find a lot of them like very repetitive.
Yeah.
A lot of the same concepts, but they're just said a different way. So I try to take more of like entrepreneurial approach of stuff that they did differently than everyone else. There's a good book called Eat Their Lunch, and it's about standing out in basically every market in business is saturated, and it's just about a book of how to basically separate yourself, and it goes a lot back to relatability and building relationships from the bottom and building it up, not just sounding like I'm here with a briefcase and I'm just showing you all my product.
Gotcha.
So I'm always just trying to do any kind of continuous learning, whether it's education from my industry or just sales techniques. Because like you said, you don't want to get complacent. You don't want your mind to be concrete. You always want it to be adapting, and you want to be a chameleon to everything that you do. So education is important. I think, I hope I answered your question, but
that was perfect. Yeah. That was perfect. Listen, Eric, I just want to thank you.
Yes, sir.
For coming out and being on the episode today. And for any of our, cigar smokers out there, definitely check out the Blueprint Cigar.
That's it. I should have brought the Blueprint Cigar.
Honestly,
on the Blueprint podcast.
It is kind of funny. Like, I was really thinking about it before. I was like, Beyond the Blueprint Cigar. We're pretty on brand here. It's a great cigar. I definitely recommend you guys check it out and tune into Eric's page if you would like to know more about his brand and how they started that cigar line. It's great brand backed by even better people. So. Thank you, everyone, for watching today. Another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino, Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. Have a great day.